What is going on, everybody? Good evening, hello, and welcome back to another episode of XBL Party Podcast, episode 62. Joining me tonight and Sergeant Sentinel are the very awesome dudes of Living Split Screen, Steel Rain, and Pong Soul. Gentlemen, it's so good to have you here. How is your day going? How's it going? What have you been playing? All that fun stuff. Let us know.
Go ahead, Steel. You take it.
Oh, you want me to start it off?
Go ahead, brother. Come on, it's like Saturday morning. Let's go.
No, it is. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is I am him, the one and only Steel Rain. I want to thank these illustrious gentlemen for even asking us to be here today. It's always a great time when we can chop it up. But I am one half of Living Split Screen, non-console-centric platform that covers everything going on within the gaming industry. We are the home of that RTS view. That real-time strategy where we pull ourselves out of the world, look at the darker crevices of the map, pull those resources together so we can not only build up our own foundation, but also reach those 3 billion gamers that Phil Spencer always talks about. And what have I been into lately as far as gaming goes, man? It's been a couple things, at least here recently. Coming off of that high that was Star Wars Jedi Survivor for me was Diablo 4. And I've been in Diablo 4 very heavily. The betas had me invested, and as I didn't want to jump in there, I was coerced by some fellows to get in there and just have a good time. But the game itself has ended up being everything that I wanted. Not quite the game of the year, I would say, but definitely in that conversation for me. So there's a lot of that in there in tier 4, getting it in, pushing Nightmare Dungeon, tier 40 at this point. So feeling good, getting things together. And playing some Neo 2 in the background. I am a Souls fan. I am one of those that likes to beat their heads up against enemies and learn the patterns and customize their character and just really feel good about that progression. And I also wanted to find out why people considered Wolong a Neo 2 ripoff or a wannabe Neo 3. And I can understand completely why. They touch on the same elements pretty much. It's made essentially by, you want to consider it the same team, but not really. And it has a lot of similarities, but it's been a good time. That's been kind of what I've been into here recently, and ready to chop it up here with you guys today, man.
Nice. Pong, what about you, dude? What have you been playing?
Listen. First of all, honored, humbled for the invite to be here. It is fantastic to be able to come on new shows. I've done a lot of podcasts since I jump in this community, but anytime I get a chance to do a new show, I really appreciate the opportunity to do that. It's always great to talk to new people in this community, get to hear their thoughts more so than just on Twitter all the time, and to actually really talk to you guys. So, thank you both. Appreciate that.
Oh, no worries.
And amazing that you also got my brother from another Steel Rain on here as well. I had no idea. We were playing Diablo last night, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh yeah," or maybe it was 2 nights ago. He was like, "Yeah, I think we're both going to be on Sergeant Sentinel and Redder's show, and we're going to do that." I'm like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like, "You got an invite too?" He's like, "Yeah, man." I'm like, "Oh, here we go." All right, so always have a good time with my brother. We have been playing a ton of Diablo. I've already got over 100 hours in. Normally I would come in here and tell you a list of about 10 different games I'm playing because I'm a grazer. But there are certain games that come along where they just totally grab me and I really don't play anything else for a while. And Diablo has been that. Again, as an old school Diablo fan, this really, really hit the mark. Blizzard knocked it out of the park. They listened to the community. I know you're never going to make everybody happy when it comes to this big of a game, but for me, this is right now my game of the year. Of course, that's going to change once Starfield comes out, but for right now, this is my game of the year. Having an absolute blast with it. Playing with the rogue class, it's had its ups and downs like every Diablo in some ways. Steel and I were discussing it, and there are some things that they've done with this one in particular, obviously trying to open it up to a wider audience that, kind of made us go, was that the right decision or not? But I got over the lull, fought through it, and wound up getting some new gear that really changed my perspective on the class. And so having an absolute blast, and that's been pretty much it for me at this point. Thanks for the invite, and let's get down to business. We got a lot to talk about. How about that ABK acquisition? Let's go.
Yeah. We'll get into that in a sec. Sentinel, what have you been up to?
Not much. I'm here. I'm good. I just mute my mic, so when our guests are talking. So not interfering with anything.
I always think you've just gone off and done something else.
No, you know what? I actually finished Wreckfest. I pre-ordered it so long ago, and I just never finished it. And I played through it. And Wreckfest it's such a fun racing game, being able to run people off the road, and that's actually part of the gameplay. So I wanted to finish it. I finally finished the final championship. Outside of that, I haven't really been playing too much. I do play like different games on Game Pass, but I'm just waiting for that drop. I think it's on the 27th of all those new games that are showing up.
Yeah.
I think it is. So that's pretty much it on my end.
Awesome. So for me, I've been playing Diablo 4 all week.
Ooh.
But I'm getting to the point now where I'm level, because I love Diablo. Don't get me wrong. I've loved it since the second one. I started playing Diablo 2. Diablo 3 was amazing. I'm really enjoying Diablo 4. I like the open world aspect. Where you're running in with other players and stuff, and world bosses and all that fun stuff. But I'm level 57. I'm killing shit that's like 10 levels, 15 levels higher than me. I'm playing a Bone Spear Necro. And I'm just mincing dungeons, but it's taking me fucking forever to level up. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm just never going to make it to level 100. This has already become really tedious. I'm only level 57. And it's just taking so much time now. And I just can't be asked to start another character just yet, especially with the season pass fiasco where you got to level up a whole new character to enjoy that stuff. So yeah, I'm a bit on the fence about what to play next. Although I did read that Need for Speed Unbound has just come on the Game Pass today, so I'll probably play that at some point tonight.
Good game.
But yeah, that's about it for me. Just the usual one game at a time at the moment, which is a bit weird. Because normally I'm the same as you, Pong. I like to graze over lots of different games, and I find it weird when I just end up focusing on one. It's not right.
It does feel extremely strange. It really does, especially multiplayer.
I'm the other way.
Yeah, especially multiplayer too. So I'm used to being a single player dude. I've been a single player for a long time, but once I jumped in the community and met Steel and the whole Fun Speculation family and everybody else, I played a lot more multiplayer than I ever have before. So for me to be only playing a multiplayer game, pretty much. I mean, you can play Diablo single player, but look, we're always jumping into parties at night. It is a very odd experience for me to be doing that. So interesting times.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, let's get into the biggest juicy topic from today.
The elephant in the room.
The FTC and the ABK deal. Oosh, what a day it's been. What's your thoughts and opinions on what's gone down today? I think it's been pretty damning for PlayStation and and Jim Ryan. But yeah, let's get your guys' thoughts and opinions on it.
Go ahead, lead them victory, Pong. What you got
well,
for
let's see.
Where does smoke at?
Where do we want to begin? Again, to me, this has been fascinating from start to finish. I know a lot of people are sick and tired of this deal, and I completely understand why. Would I like this to be all over with and Microsoft back to the business side of gaming as normal? Of course I would. But because this is the biggest deal in gaming history, Microsoft's biggest deal in their entire history, think about that, a $2 trillion company, that this is the biggest deal. This is the peek behind the curtain that I've always wanted on the industry. This industry is way too top secret. So today, we're finally getting close to the end here. Cross our fingers, right? I think that this is the lead up to the end one way or the other. The FTC, I've said from the beginning, has zero case. And that's readily apparent from what I've seen. Now, I didn't listen to it live, but obviously been following Foss Patents and other accounts that are tweeting out about this because I was working this morning. But everything that I'm hearing is exactly kind of how I thought it was going to go down. Microsoft wanted, if the FTC was going to go this route, this is exactly what they wanted them to do, to get it to the federal courts. There's a reason for that, because the laws are on their side, right? It's different in other countries and how they do things. We know that with the CMA and all that kind of stuff. But here, it's pretty well established concrete law about how mergers and acquisitions go down and what you have to prove to stop them. And the judges in the federal courts don't make up new rules on the fly. That's the legislative part of things, right? So they don't change it. And even if there is something to be said, or, even if the judge agrees, well, maybe this could be a problem down the road, if it doesn't fall within the guidelines, they're not going to side with the FTC. And what we saw today is why these Microsoft attorneys are $1 million attorneys. They got everybody, the witnesses that are being presented today. And so far, I think it's been Booty, Pete Hines, Sarah Bond, I think was going going on when I was getting ready to come on here. They've got them prepared. The FTC is trying to make their case. They've tried to bring the same talking points as Sony did, so many times with regulatory bodies. But then, of course, Microsoft just whips out the Sony internal emails where Jim Ryan is being hypocritical, where he is telling everybody internally, this is no big deal. Yeah, sure, I'd rather it not go through, but this isn't going to hurt us at the end of the day, which is extremely different from what he was telling everybody else and what the FTC is running with. So the Microsoft attorneys have been spot on, ready at every moment. The witnesses that have gone up, the FTC has tried to paint a certain narrative in picture, as that's their job to do. But Microsoft attorneys have been ready and have coached their witnesses to counter punch those. I will point out that Matt Booty this morning, again, the quiet, definitely underspoken man that Matt Booty is. I can't imagine what he's feeling like getting up on that witness stand. They had him ready, and they countered with questions that allowed him to clarify statements that he made in response to the FTC to let the judge know, hey, you're not getting the full context. I'm answering these questions, but this is one-sided from the FTC. Here's the full story. And they did it perfectly from everything that I read this morning. So again, right now, it looks like this is going according to plan with Microsoft and Xbox. And I think that, again, this judge is the same judge, for people who don't know, that heard the gamers lawsuit case as well. So she's already heard a lot of this narrative. She's already heard a lot of the talking points, and she's heard a lot of the counter talking points. She's very well versed in this now, so they're not going to slide anything by her. She's asking very poignant questions to the witnesses, as well as she should. As it is not a jury trial. This is decided by the judge. But I think at the end of the day, right now, there has been no smoking gun. There has been nothing, oh my God, I can't believe it. Oh, Microsoft is just screwed here. Oh God, I can't believe that. There's been nothing like that. They tried the old emails. All that was explained. The biggest news for us gamers today, we now know Indiana Jones is an exclusive, because that came out during the trial. Incredible that we got a new game release confirmed exclusive today, but that's what happens in these trials. But I love everything we're learning. Again, if you've been following along, you've probably absolutely absorbed a ton of information, things that you never knew went on behind the scenes, and that's what I love about this. We get to see how these companies actually work. I've talked enough. Sorry, I love this case. I think it's fun. I've been covering it for a long time. Today's exciting day, and we are getting close to the end, one way or the other. But I think Microsoft and Xbox are going to win this one. So we'll see. Yeah,
I'll tell you what. The biggest thing for me today was that the emails that Jim Ryan has put out.
Yes.
Because you got in the last 18 months. How long has it been? 18 months that this has been going on, something like that.
Yes.
He has cried for every which way but loose about how losing Call of Duty will hurt PlayStation irrevocably, and how they can't survive without Call of Duty, and that's what he's been feeding to the public. So it's the fact that he's come out today and it's been revealed that he's basically talking shit. I think he's lost all credibility. And I don't understand how anyone at the CMA or the FTC can sit there and take his argument seriously after he's saying 1 minute that it's going to be devastating to PlayStation, and then the next minute it's going to be, it's nothing to worry about. I don't understand how he can have any credibility at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, because, again, this is something that we all pointed out on our podcast. Of course, we as podcasters who don't work for any of these companies or have any internal knowledge, we're just taking that big view, that RTS view, as Steel likes to say, or satellite view, and just kind of using our educated guesses on what was going on internally. And we all kind of said, a lot of us said from the beginning, that Jim was bullshitting, right? This whole entire time. Yeah. That there was no way Sony was going to collapse because they lost Call of Duty. Would it hurt? Of course it would hurt, but they are way too big to sit there and try to claim, oh, one game is going to crush us and we're just not going to be able to survive without it. Bullshit, Jim. You knew this. But the CMA and the FTC are willing to run with Sony's narrative, because this is an agenda-based decision for both of those countries. Both of these countries have reasons internally to do something like this, to stop Microsoft, to look tough against big tech. This has got nothing to, at the end of the day, really do with the gaming industry. The government could give two shits about the gaming industry up to this point, ever since the ratings. That was the biggest deal ever, was the ratings. When Mortal Kombat and stuff came out, that was the last big time the governments took notice of the gaming industry. The only reason why they're taking notice of this now is because now big tech bad. We can't let Microsoft, they don't look at it as Xbox. They look at it as Microsoft, which
Yeah.
fair enough. They are the parent company.
It's the money
And we're
spent,
gonna,
yeah.
we're gonna stop Microsoft making a $70 billion deal because that's just too big, and we can't allow these
Right.
companies to get away with it. So,
Well,
that's
and you're
where I'm
right.
at.
Because
So just to do, Thimba does a super chat with 2023, the year of Xbox. Also, hello XPN and guests. Cheers, Thimba. I appreciate you being here. as
Hey,
always, buddy.
Thimber. Thanks, man.
Thanks for dropping
Thank
by
you
and-
so much, Denver. No, what I was going to add to that is, Pong, if you remember, ever since Bill Gates first started Microsoft, the government's been fighting them every single chance they got.
Yeah.
Which they had a point to.
At some points, they had a right to, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But it
But-
feels like this is an extension of that. You know,
In some ways,
It-
yeah, for sure.
It gave them a reason. Microsoft has flown under the radar. They've done a good job of cleaning up their image, especially under Satya. Satya has changed a lot of the narrative
Yeah, absolutely,
around
yeah.
Microsoft. He's done a fantastic job. But again, when you say company, $2 trillion, government
Yeah.
looks at it and goes, "Oh, you guys are back in the limelight again." They
Right.
start rubbing their hands together like, "Yeah, dinner is served. Let's go get them." But
Right.
but their plate is empty, right? Their plate is empty at the end of the day when it comes to the FTC.
Yeah.
When you look at the laws and regulations, so I think that's where it's going to remain. I don't think they get anything out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing that we've taken out of this is something that I've spoken to since the very beginning. Something that me and Pong have gone back and forth about since the very beginning too, because we both honestly felt like there was no reason for any for anything to necessarily block this deal outside of it just being a reason to make an example out of something, right? And who better than Microsoft, somebody that can afford to make an example, right? Because at this point, no matter what the concession is, it's a W. Right. Although, and that's one of my biggest problems, is that there shouldn't necessarily need to be concessions just because the competitor that has been lacking in the space for a long time, regardless if you want to use the Xbox 360 generation as an example of a win for Microsoft, at the end of the day, Microsoft has been a little brother to the gaming industry. Sure, they've made some games for PC and whatnot, but their real stride was doing things with Xbox. And we've also found out, and if you guys haven't checked it out, please check out Xbox On. But through the documentary, you kind of get to see and experience what Xbox has kind of had to go through because they were treated very differently to Microsoft, the corporation that was trying to put business in front of people and make Office accessible to everybody. Right. In 2017, Xbox wasn't considered a pillar, and for Microsoft to finally put the dollar amount behind something that they believe in a space that they have been not only third place and maybe even further down, depending on the conversation, what circles you run in, and for it to get all the pushback. Anything outside of, oh, well, they're just spending an exorbitant amount of money, the most that this company has ever spent. Why are they doing this? Any conversation out of that, like Call of Duty's exclusivity, which again, we've also stated, I mean, me and Paul both have evidence of, we said it from the very beginning that Jim Ryan didn't feel that Call of Duty was a big deal. He was just saying things to say things. And that's kind of been Sony's approach this entire time. Sony doesn't care about the competition. They've been trying to kill Microsoft since they came into the existence with Xbox, right? They said that there's an interview in the Xbox On documentary that says the same thing. They were trying to beat Microsoft to the living room. And unfortunately, Microsoft, through Halo, through multiplayer gaming, through giving people more accessibility points, have driven different points home and have made this competition kind of go back and forth, where Sony has continued to use their, let's say, their back-ended deals, conversations behind the scenes, their market power, their hardware awareness, right? Because they've been doing it since the very beginning. I go with this through Pong with Pong all the time. I wasn't old enough necessarily to have a Walkman per se, but there are so many people that I've heard stories from and grew up with stereo systems and all these different things. It's crazy for people to think that Sony doesn't have the brand power that they have and wouldn't complain about Microsoft throwing their money around because that's the only thing that you can complain about, right? My biggest issue with Sony is their lack of competitive nature, regardless of how you want to address their games or say how great they are and cinematic and all the money they spend, and that's cool and all. but they are lacking on one end, and they blatantly have recognized that and stated that throughout this entire process with the FTC by saying that, hey, well, we need Call of Duty, or making it at least seem that way. Making statements like, oh, well, it helps fund our first party, and trying to make themselves seem really hurt. And again, if Sony's in those dire straits, it's no fault but their own, because a lot of these things that they're complaining about, the cloud market, all that infrastructure and whatnot, that they're trying to use against Microsoft, and a lot of these conversations, or even removing Nintendo out of the conversation to even try to add more, what I would say, solidarity to the conversation, has put Sony in a very weak place for me, man.
Yeah, for sure.
They're not as strong as they used to be. The consistent statements that Jim Ryan, again, I mean, for you to now be in another position where you're stating that, hey, we were just doing this to do it because, I mean, whether they get Activision or not, it's no big deal to us. It's just like you're continuously, like how people love to say that Microsoft loves to step on that rake. The only reason why the rake is never seen to be stepped on by Sony is because of that brand power. And again, I think this is a good example of that. Again, putting itself in the forefront in that foray. It's embarrassing to me as if I was a Sony fan or anything like that to that nature. So I don't know.
We all talk about competition and how it makes companies better. I honestly think that after the Xbox One generation, PlayStation never expected them to still be around today. They kind of expected them to just fade away. And that's what it feels like, because PlayStation, if they would have kept up the same tempo they had during the PlayStation 4 generation, I don't think they would be as concerned with this merger as they are, because they started taking it easy and they said, oh, don't worry about Xbox. They won't be around next generation. Well, now they're around this generation. They're buying Activision Blizzard, and now they're concerned because they're like, crap, maybe we shouldn't have started coasting. Maybe we should have kept up that tempo and kept, putting out quality exclusives. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Time and time again, it happens in this industry, right? Time and time again, we've seen this. That's why we saw back and forth between the two for a while. And even you go back to Nintendo and Sega, the same thing, back and forth, because one company gets comfortable, but like any big bad boss, right, in any video game right now, Sony showed their weak spot, right? They've got a weak spot, and that weak spot is that they started relying on third parties to fill out their catalog. Instead of making their own games in different genres, they relied on third parties, and now that's coming back to bite them when Microsoft is walking around with a big bank account buying up third parties. And now they know that we weren't ready for this. We didn't think Microsoft, the corporation, was going to show up. We didn't think Daddy was going to show up. We weren't ready for this. Well, that's your fault. Like Steele said, that's poor planning. That's poor business decision making. Again, I don't necessarily not understand why they did it. It's very easy to get complacent when you're sitting on your throne and there's barely anybody that can touch you and you got gold piled up all around you. It's very easy to say you got it made. You can go ahead and relax a little bit. Yeah, all of a sudden, again, Big Daddy shows up and he's got more gold than you. That changes the game, right? That changes the battle, and that's where they're at right now. They're on defense right now.
I'll tell you what, I feel like the biggest weakness that PlayStation have shown in the last 18 months is Jim Ryan. I think he's been weak from start to finish. He's basically made PlayStation look like this giant that can be toppled by losing a third-party game. And it hasn't looked great for PlayStation for a long time. And the longer this whole deal is gone on, and the more that's been revealed, as to what's going on behind the scenes, the more it makes PlayStation look. It's just embarrassing. I mean, this is a company that spent all of last gen putting out top first-party exclusives. Now they've got Jim Ryan, and now they're focusing on games as a service and shit from third-party developers. And it's just like. It's like their focus has completely shifted. I mean, we've said this before on the show previously. It's like their focus has shifted and they've become really complacent. And there was a long period of time when Xbox was very quiet, especially towards the end of the Xbox One life, where they put out Project Scorpio and then there was like pretty much nothing really going on at Xbox. But then they announced Game Pass, and it's been like ever since then they're just hitting on all cylinders. It's like, right, we're gonna build up Game Pass. Now we're gonna buy up studios to put games on Game Pass. It just seems like they're on a roll now. And PlayStation are like, oh shit, we didn't see this coming, and we've got nothing to rival it. So now they're acting like losing Call of Duty is the end of the world for them. It's
Correct.
crazy to me. It's crazy.
Yeah.
To me. I just think Jim Ryan is the biggest weakness of PlayStation at the moment.
You know what sucks about this whole situation is PlayStation has first-party games that could cover down, and you have some of them on the shelf. SOCOM, it's still remembered by a lot of people who've grown up loving gaming, and SOCOM is nowhere to be found. It's an entire franchise built around special operators, much like Call of Duty, and it feels like if PlayStation spent as much time investing in that as they are flying to Brussels and Belgium and wherever the hell else they've been flying for this court case, they wouldn't have an issue. They'd be like, you got Call of Duty? Fine, we got SOCOM. They wouldn't even care.
Yeah. Even if they couldn't compete one for one with Call of Duty, which chances are they wouldn't be able to, right? Call of Duty's on its own, but at the same time, just to have something to fall back onto that is first party. Yes, they have the ability to do that. They have IP galore that have been mothballed in the closet for so long that had they continued to develop those games, who knows where they would be at this point, right? Who knows what kind of franchises those could have turned. MotorStorm could have been Forza Horizon's competitor.
I know where they would have been.
Where?
They would have been in the garbage because they wouldn't have been able to support them. Because if you also look at what they've gone through since they've stepped into the internet and gaming more, so multiplayer gaming, and so they've been hacked multiple times over, and the consumer base still believes in them. Yeah. Like what you have more of an infrastructure that blatantly shows you that you have an infrastructure problem that you need to work on, and you're just now turning a corner to where you could work on live services. You're going to bring Bungie in, somebody else I think does understand live services more than most, but at the same point, like, they haven't made the best choices either. We're removing content, taking content away, making you pay $100 for almost every year, if not almost every other year, for their same game that they remove content away from. So it's like one solution doesn't beget the other solution, and you've blatantly told your consumer base that you don't believe in this, and have shown that I shouldn't have faith in your ecosystem, because not only have you gotten hacked once, twice, but 3 times, and have lost millions of users' information. Yeah, like there's another problem. You can't focus on a SOCOM or try to focus on multiplayer gaming at all when you have an infrastructure problem that blatantly Xbox hasn't had to deal with as often. I'm not saying that Xbox hasn't had its issue. Xbox Live goes down. Like, they're not perfect, but Xbox has also blatantly stated that, hey, maybe it's for a night, maybe it's for a day. They're also very vocal with you, not as much as they used to be, which was the other advantage that they had. You could call customer service up, and it was easy, right, to have those conversations with those people. Now it's much different, unfortunately, but on both sides, you never got that from the opposition as far as Sony goes. No. And then that's another shortcoming that I think they're exposing themselves to once again. As far as everything they're going through in court right now with the FTC and the pieces that they're bringing for conversation points. I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's crazy. I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of it unfolds. I think it's going to be. It's going to get nice and spicy. Yeah, I think it's. This is the first day in it. Like, was it like 5 days?
Okay, well, let me ask you guys something. Because this is a big black eye for Sony. Do you think the leadership at Sony over Jim Ryan, do you think they're going to be looking at him in a negative light after this whole debacle is over with?
No, not in
He's
my
making them more money than they've ever
seen. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's what talks. Like I've said many times, I don't have to like what Jim Ryan did, but as the head of $1 billion, division, is that something you would do to protect, any portion of your bottom line? Again, will they survive? Yes, of course they'll survive. Would it still hurt to lose Call of Duty? Of course it would. And if you've got Sony's upper management looking over at you, and again, it is 2 different cultures when we talk about this, because PlayStation is in the United States now and corporate is over in Japan still. So it is different, and Jim understands this. I mean, again, Jim was ahead of the European division and took the European division to new heights, right? So he gets that dynamic. But when you've got them looking over at you going, Jim, what are you going to do about this? Right? Like, this is going to knock, whatever it is, $250 million off of our bottom line. If we don't have Call of Duty, what are you going to do about this? This is your job. Would I, as Jim Ryan, maybe start applying the same type of tactics? Sure. If I had people willing to listen to me, if I had governments that were willing to use me as a basis to try to slow down or completely stop this deal, yeah, I'm going to try to take that advantage, even if in the public eye, even if in the, the public sphere, I look weak or I make PlayStation look weak. At the end of the day, I don't care. I need my money, right? My money's got to be right, and I got to make the bosses happy. So yeah, I'm going to go over here and do this. So I don't think so. I think Jim did what was necessary in his eyes and in the eyes of Sony to try to at least put stumbling blocks in the way of Microsoft. If anything, they bought themselves more time to get their games as a service games ready, to start thinking about new moves. You saw Sony is allocating more money to acquisitions, to beefing up their studio. So it allowed them, even in this industry, even granting yourself an extra 6 months to a year that wouldn't have been there if you didn't put up the fight. And again, whether or not this still would have happened without Jim, we don't know. But let's say that you just say, okay, I bought us another 6 months to a year. Microsoft and Xbox are wrapped up in this acquisition. They can't do anything else right now. This buys us time to start, beefing up, to start getting these games as a service to a point where we can start showing them like they did at their showcase, which nobody's happy about, but that's their plan going forward, right? They've told us. So it did buy them more time in the long run, and I think that at the end of the day, Jim would say it's worth it, that people are going to forget this whole thing once it's done and over with. People aren't going to stop buying PlayStations because Jim was complaining to the CMA or complaining to the FTC. Nobody cares outside of us, right? Nobody cares outside the people watching this. So,
well, here's my question, though. Today it was brought up, I guess, in their court proceedings, that if Activision is acquired by Microsoft, they do not want to provide them with a PS6.
It's freaking hot air. More hot air, Sergeant. There's no way, because again,
that's messed up though that they would even say that.
Right. It's messed up they would even say it, but that's why it's
I'll
just
tell you
more.
I'll tell you why they've said it.
Go
right?
ahead,
because then if they put out a Call of Duty that isn't optimized, they can turn around and say, "Oh, it's Microsoft's fault." But that's why they're doing it.
That's true.
But it's never going to work at the end of the day, because they freely admitted what their plans were. But again, Microsoft already explained they have a whole separate team that deals with Sony for the games that go over there, and vice versa. And again, does Xbox withhold their Xbox Series consoles from Sony when they make MLB the show? No, of course not. Again, that's not going to happen. They might not give it to them as early as they would. They might not give them dev kits as early as they would, but it's still not going to stop them from the end of the day. They're not going to give up Call of Duty voluntarily. I don't see.
Absolutely. I think it's quite telling as well, the fact that Jim Ryan's not even showing up to the court case. I think that's
exactly.
Like, he hasn't even bothered to turn up. Like, fuck it. Just stay here in Europe.
Right.
Whereas Xbox has literally sent every big player.
I think his private jet's in the shop. That's what it is. It's just not,
I mean, he was flying all over when it came time to cry about how COD's going to be pulled as an exclusive.
I think it's all semantics at the end of the day. Again, there's another thing that some of these gaming documentaries that I've been peeping into within the last couple of years have shown me too, is that they're shaking hands and talking to each other behind the scenes too. Because at the end of the day, in the gaming industry, you got to turn a profit, and you got to talk to your competitors and see how you can innovate and push things forward. And it's not crazy to think there's a reason why they both went with the Times 86 architecture and everything for this generation, and wanted to make things easier for developers. And of course, they're doing it their own ways, but there's just a lot of semantics that are happening behind the scenes, and it's just I don't know. I want to see I want to see what's right come out of this situation versus what people are imagining should be right. You know what I mean?
You know what he said about how none of their studios could compete with Call of Duty. I feel for the developers of PlayStation, because imagine making a game for 2 or 3 or 4 years and you think it's great, and then your ultimate boss is like, "Hey, none of that is as good as Call of Duty. That's basically churned out every 3 years." You know, that's
Yeah.
got to be a blow to their morale.
But internally they're having meetings and Jim's like, oh, don't worry about this Activision Blizzard deal. It's no big deal. We got plenty of games coming. You guys are great. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like the external stuff internally, they're saying, which again we've seen, they're literally saying the exact opposite through their emails. So you know the internal meetings are like, yeah, whatever you hear out here from me, whatever you hear that I said, yeah, don't worry about that because that's got nothing to do with anything. We're just trying to block this deal or get it slowed down. So I think the devs, I understand your point, Sergeant. I know other people have brought that up as well, but I think that Naughty Dog and Insomniac and all those guys and gals are definitely, I think they know what's going on. I think they're pretty smart. I think they get it.
Yeah, for sure. And we might as well get into another topic here because it is like Xbox related and shit. But
what do you mean? We could just keep going. We could just spend 2 hours and ABK. Let's go.
That's what we do.
4-hour podcast today. Let's do it.
Oh man.
Hey, you guys are the one that invited us on. Just remember that.
Right. Yep.
They have just announced, haven't they, like a hardware price increase and Game Pass price increase. You know what? I think we all knew it was coming. I think there's a lot of unnecessary backlash on Twitter about the Game Pass price increase because even with an extra $2 towards Ultimate, it's still the best deal in gaming.
Yeah, oh yeah,
I think there's a lot of unnecessary outcrying about it. I mean, hardware was going to go up anyway. We all knew that. Like they can only hold it back for so long. But
man, it's such a difficult conversation, man. Well, I won't say it's difficult, right? Because when I speak, I always try to speak very strongly. So for me, on that, just the entire price increase situation, it didn't need to happen. We're 3 years into a generation, still haven't seen the full capability of what the hardware is capable of. There were already console hardware is already being always sold at a loss. They've sold more hardware than they've ever have. They're making more money than they've ever made before. There's too many avenues of revenue, and we can cry out and say, oh, well, inflation, all we want. And there's also been a lot more pulled back of product that we actually get in hand now, especially as the gamer. Again, this is a hobby, we're a consumer. If you want to compare it to what I was getting to what I'm getting now, and of course I understand the advantages and all the upgrades. So I'll take the digital age versus me having stuff hard copy. But there's just, I personally don't get outside if I'm just being a greedy business and wanting to make the most profit as possible, and I have to make some people in my boardroom happy, for you to raise prices at all. Currently, especially if hardware is getting older. If you're not selling to your consumers, you're top of the line software, which none of the software that we've gotten currently is that. Matter of fact, we've actually gotten more complete day one games from third party than we've actually gotten from first party themselves. That's embarrassing. Don't raise prices on me if as the consumer, at least, if you can't even meet what your original vision is. Your original vision was also part of the reason that you sold this hardware, is because we could finally meet a frame rate demand, which obviously is coming to come out either in some ways true, in some ways not. Like, people are already throwing in the white flag saying, oh man, Starfield is the pinnacle of what Xbox is going to be able to do. And it's like, guys, but if we get a 60 FPS patch 6 months later, then what does that tell you? That it just wasn't ready at that time, which is fine, but you can't have like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, giving people information, but also withholding information that could be beneficial to your consumer, so we can have more of a diverse conversation, right? The Game Pass raise, that's one that I don't necessarily, I can understand in some ways, because at the end of the day, family plan's right around the corner, right? And you'll be crazy to think if they're not trying to pigeonhole people into the family plan, right? Hey, we'll just get with 5 of the people, however y'all want to work that out, or however they end up making that work for people, can be a supreme advantage. But again, I have to agree, you're already getting so much value with that already, especially if you're using it consistently. I know there's a good amount of people that say, well, I don't use Game Pass, and I've played every game that's ever come out in Game Pass, and there's nothing for me there, so I unsubscribe. I hear you. I don't have that type of time. I'm a dad. I got a lot of different things going on. So there's always something coming in there. And by the time I'm done with that, something new comes in that I might want to try, and I end up putting time into. Because like we mentioned in the beginning of the show, I am also one of those people that I like to spend my time with the games that I do play. So it's unfortunate in a lot of ways, but on the consumer standpoint, again, this is Microsoft just being Microsoft, trying to be, underhanded a little bit here, and then trying to tell you, oh, well, it's because of, you got to be understanding, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too bad though, because right now there are 450 titles available for console. I know I counted them the other day.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that ranges from smaller indie titles that are brand new. You got Forza Motorsport right around the corner. Both Redders and myself are looking forward to it. You got Starfield that is so amazing that people are wanting to sell their PlayStations to buy an Xbox for it.
Right.
So you got all these games coming, and yeah, the price increase sucks, but it's kind of something we already expected,
Yeah, I've been consistent with this. I understand the reasons behind it. I look at everything from the educated perspective, as Steele always likes to say, and so I get it, right? I like the business side of things, and so I do watch that stuff. But for me, I've been consistent, and I will say this again and again. It doesn't matter who does it. I've called every single one of these companies out for it. If you're going to come out and brag about making more money than you ever have before, consistently, even when people try to say that you're down and you still come out, no, we're doing great, we're just making all this money, blah blah blah. I will say, as far as the consumer side of things goes, this is unnecessary. This is something that I don't care if it's expected. You can justify it all you want. You can say I'm okay with it. I'm not going to try to change your mind. Like, I'm not here to change anybody's mind on anything. I'm just here to simply state my opinion. I think it sucks. I think it is one of the bad parts of the society we live in, capitalism, which I love capitalism. It's created more, it's created more wealth than any other system in the world ever in history. But at the same time, this is the one thing that I don't like, is when a company is making massive, massive profits, that they still find excuses and reasons to pass costs down to the consumer as small as $2. Like, everybody goes, oh, it's just $2. Well, then I can flip that right around and say, why does Microsoft care about $2 per person? Why do they care about that? What is that going to change for them, right? So, again, it works both ways. So just from the standpoint of a consumer, I will always speak out. I made a post about it. I think it's BS. I will always say it's BS, especially during these times. This is not a time of extreme prosperity. Let's put it that way, across the globe. We just came out of the pandemic. There's been so much happening that has cost people so much that, again, a company like Microsoft, I think they can eat it for a little bit longer, is what I will say. Now, do they have to? No. Am I going to stop using Game Pass? No, of course not. It's still the best deal in gaming. Everybody's right about that. Of course it is. I'm not saying any of that. But what I am saying is, just from a pure customer standpoint, I will never agree with them raising prices, especially on the consoles. The consoles is egregious, okay? Normally at this point, we are dropping the price in the console generation, right? Normally by this point, we are talking about slimmed down versions of the console, cheaper versions. This is on them to do that. I know there's been issues. I know that we had the whole chip shortage for a while, but we've been told that's all corrected now. Okay, so where's your revised consoles? Where's your more slimmer form factor? Where's your cheaper chipsets? Where's all that you have done forever, and you tell us is the natural progression with this in this industry? Where is that 3 years in, right? And like Steele said, we don't even have a lot of content out there that's pushing this hardware yet. So, to me, I think that's the most egregious. The Game Pass thing, sure, you can say it's just $2, but overall, I think it's bullshit. I think Microsoft should have held out even longer and never done this price increase now. But that's just my personal take. Again, not here to convince anybody. If everybody says it's no big deal, hey, it's no big deal to you, that's fine. So,
yeah, I think you brought up the family plan, and I kind of feel like they should have announced this at the same time.
It's like, come on, man. You can offset some things here,
Yep, exactly.
But maybe they're not solidified in stone with where they want that to be either, right? I mean, if it comes in at $24.99, even at $29.99, again, if it's $24.99 a month for 5 people to jump in, I mean, like, guys, I mean, what can I complain about at that point for the amount of games that you'd be wanting to play, unless you are one of those people that literally, I guess, plays everything because you have that type of time. And I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys feel about it. I mean, you got any other like deeper thoughts on like the entire situation? Because I know there's a little bit of pushback here. Because I know you guys. It is what it is.
I think Pong brought up a good point about them not even pushing the consoles so far.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Yeah.
It's like Microsoft has the money, and I think the thing that this is kind of a little bit separate, but you'll understand why I'm tying it in. Microsoft has given Bethesda a little bit more room to do what they want to do, but some of their games have worked. Of course, id Software is worth their weight in gold. Right. Some of their games haven't, like Redfall. And yes, you could say, well, we're raising the price because of these acquisitions. But you look at ABK, you know, the mobile games that Activision Blizzard King own, that's a cash cow. They're going to make so much money on that. So it doesn't really justify raising the price. I could see raising it a little bit around the Bethesda acquisitions if those titles were going exclusive. They weren't, so you're still getting multi-platform money. Right. But to say they're raising it because of ABK, it's like, come on, man. We know that's not the case because, like I said, the mobile side of the house is going to make so much damn money. Because right now, the mobile market probably makes more money than consoles as far as video games go throughout the entire world. So getting ABK is, I mean, that's like their own little magic lamp is what that is.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's tricky, isn't it? Because, like, I mean, obviously with inflation and shit going up around the world, these things are bound to be expected. You know, companies still have to make money at the end of the day. But for me, like, I hear what Pong's saying, but for me, I just don't see it as being a massive deal. It's just $2 extra for me. So, I mean,
I'm not saying everybody's going to go protest or anything. It's not going to happen, right? It's not like that. This isn't like life altering changes, for most people. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, I just don't think we should shoulder that burden when you've got a company that is $2 trillion market cap, that has over $100 billion in the bank, and is currently in the process of making a $70 billion purchase, right? I understand why they do it. I understand the need to make sure your shareholders are happy year after year. That's why Activision was in trouble, because they had to put out Call of Duty every single year to make sure that their shareholders were happy. And that cost them a lot, because they had to pull all that talent from all those studios that could have been making other games and pour it into Call of Duty to make sure. That's why, again, everybody's favorite snake in the entire world, Bobby Kotick, came out and said, we are in trouble. This is unsustainable, right? This is unsustainable. And he wasn't lying. People like to say, oh, they're lying. No, they weren't. Their shareholders and board were not happy unless they had that Call of Duty profit year after year after year, and it kills the corporation. So at the end of the day, I understand the business behind it. I understand the reasoning behind it. I'm just saying, as a straight up consumer, I don't like it. That's all. So,
and as much as many of us like the Activision IPs that aren't being developed, most of those are single player. Call of Duty is single player and multiplayer, and it's making that crazy money every single year.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. But I'd like to. I really hope that if this deal does go through, that they start pulling some of those supporting studios off Call of Duty and putting them on something else.
Make Call of Duty bi-yearly or every 3 years. Do something like that. Make it a platform. Just make it a games as a service where you release yearly expansions, but not something you have to build from the ground up all over again each year.
I'd happily see a COD every 2 years, but I would have it so that only Infinity Ward and Treyarch were making it.
Correct.
Just every 2 years. And then
get Sledgehammer out of there.
Get Sledgehammer out of there. Put them on Halo.
Bring back True Crime. God
Thank you. That was the first game I said when this ABK deal went down. Make yourself an in-house Grand Theft Auto competitor. Just do it. You could make it different enough, but man, to have that franchise come back would be unbelievable. It'd be so cool.
Especially with a huge budget, AAA. It would really give Grand Theft Auto a run for their money.
Sure. And even if it didn't, again, you're not pigeonholed into relying on Grand Theft Auto to come out every 10 years. You could make True Crime that in-between game that everybody goes to, because you could put out a True Crime every 4 years, every 5 years, right? And all of a sudden you could have 2 games to their 1 game, and everybody would be extremely happy because they would have something to play that was like Grand Theft Auto in between. Now, again, GTA Online is the dominating factor, right? That's the hard part, but Microsoft already has experience there too. They could certainly do something, even if it never got even close to Grand Theft Auto, which it wouldn't, but even if it just was sustainable and it was a great first-party game that was on PC and Xbox, it could be another feather in your cap that, hey, we've got a GTA-like game over here that you're not going to experience elsewhere. It's I think it makes more sense.
Because Crackdown didn't pan out, so you know.
No, even though I love Crackdown. I do love Crackdown.
Yeah, same here.
I was always under the impression that Contraband exclusive that's coming was going to be like a GTA kind.
No,
Is it not?
no,
Is it not?
it's not.
Oh.
No,
It's
not.
co-op.
It's going to be a co-op. You're going to plan heists, and it's going to be more car battles than on-foot battles. You
Like
will
Smuggler's Run, maybe.
Yes, kind of like a
okay.
Smuggler's Run, correct. If you remember Smuggler's Run, great game, by the way. Good callback right there. Smuggler's Run was fantastic. But yeah, it's definitely going to be not GTA-like. So.
Oh, okay. I see. I really want a Prototype 3. That's what I really want.
That too.
On a next-gen Prototype 3, where they really push the envelope. You know what I mean? Because I always thought, like, for its time on 360, I thought the Prototype games were fucking brilliant. Like, they were just gritty, violent, gory, but they look great at the time. But could you imagine, like, a next-gen Prototype 3, where it's
reinvent it. You got your anti-hero to all of your hero games out there. It would be perfect. Like, they could turn that into something big. I would love to see Prototype as well. That was number 2 on my list. Yep, absolutely.
I'd happily work on Prototype.
It kind of feels like Prototype didn't necessarily live up to Activision's expectations, and that's why it shelved it. Because like the first
number 2
classic,
number
there,
2,
that's the thing.
Yeah, well, because like the first Prototype released almost like within a few months of Infamous, and those games are extremely similar to gamers. So it kind of felt like Activision didn't necessarily do their market research beforehand. Hopefully, if Microsoft buys them, they start really thinking about when to release these games, because like we saw with Titanfall 2, releasing a stellar game in the wrong time can absolutely kill its success.
Yeah. I don't want Microsoft's plan for Activision is just to keep them doing what they're doing and just having fucking Call of Duty coming out all the time. I want
not the Bethesda
there's
thing.
so many great IPs there, do you know what I mean? That they can work on.
Yep.
Could you like a fucking an exclusive? I suppose you won't get exclusives, but like a new Crash Bandicoot and shit.
Yeah, Toys for Bob's got to be working on something else besides Call of Duty. Toys for Bob's does not deserve to be working on Call of Duty at all. Even if they did have to keep the Call of Duty train rolling, the fact that Microsoft could then pull the IP and find other studios to work on it, which they haven't been good at, I'll admit. They've got their own IP that is sitting dormant right now that shouldn't be. But if Phil was being serious and he saw a lot of comeback for some of that IP, then just the fact that it would be out of Activision's jail, and that Phil could say, okay, well, that's fine, you guys continue to work on Call of Duty, but I'm taking this IP and we're going to go find somebody to do something with it. That's exciting to me too. So
I'd even be happy if they were to like pull Sledgehammer Games off Call of Duty and have them develop their own first person like IP, and then they could have it from the developers of Call of Duty. Here comes Boosh, and then push that out as like. Because obviously these 10-year deals aren't going to last forever. There's going to come a point where Call of Duty is going to be.
Another game that Thimber actually brought up in the chat, Singularity. You guys remember Singularity? How great that game was whenever it released.
A cult classic. One of the underrated 360 games of all time. Right. That Singularity was such a great playthrough for me. I absolutely love that game. Love to see it come back too. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So we've got a bit more Xbox news coming out this week. Apparently, there's going to be an ID at Xbox, an IGN showcase on the 11th of July, which is going to be good. They got more games and shit to show off. Unannounced games as well, which should be pretty good. So I don't really know what's coming with that, but that's kind of cool that we're still getting another showcase after the.
So it's an IGN showcase. That's the ID or independent game from Xbox, right? Yeah.
Yep, correct.
They're partnering up and doing a showcase on the 11th of July, which I think is really cool, because we did say, didn't we, during the time there was no ID at Xbox showcase is at the Xbox showcase. So it's kind of cool that they're having another one. We're going to show off even more unannounced games.
The
Little
bar
Kitty,
was...
Big City. I cannot wait till that game comes out. Oh, can't wait.
Nice. I was just gonna say the bar was set so low with their partnership with Twitch that I think it can only go up with IGN. So I am optimistic with this one, right? Because I love ID at Xbox. I'm an indie game player, especially when they drop into Game Pass and that kind of stuff. I still like the big titles overall, but I love finding indie titles that I love to play. Again, Vampire Survivors, those types of games come out of this program, and so that's why I always watch these shows. But my God, the Twitch was abysmal, right? What they did to it, how they went for 4.5, 5 hours, and they had these extended bathroom breaks, and they had all these people that nobody knows who they are, but supposedly they're Twitch famous, talking about these games, and they knew nothing. And then they had 30-minute sit-downs with the developers. And don't get me wrong, I love listening to developers talk, but a showcase is not the place for a 30-minute sit-down with a developer, right? Yeah. That's for a separate video. That's for Xbox Wire. That's for, all that stuff. You need quick. I love to hear the developers talk about their games that they're showing off, but for the time that it takes to show off that game in a trailer form, that's what I want to see, much like we saw in the developer direct with Xbox, right? Give me little snippets of the developers telling me what they're trying to do with this game, and then move on to the next game. That's exactly what I want to see. And if I want to go deep dive it later, have a full-fledged interview video ready for me, right? And I'll go deep dive that video on my own. But Twitch just did it. Again, they were abysmal. So for me, that IGN has now taken this over. I think that Xbox heard the feedback. And again, I am hopeful that IGN can do a better job with it, and we are going to come find out. But I can't wait to see some more indie games. This gets me excited. Indie games are really cool. They push the industry forward, and I want to see what's next.
See, I've never personally been a big fan of indie games. I prefer, the bigger AAAs and stuff. But one thing I love about Game Pass is that it does encourage me to play more indie games. Correct. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what gets shown off at ID at Xbox.
Do they still have The Long Dark as part of the indie lineup for Xbox?
Oh, I don't know. It got pulled, didn't it, off Game Pass?
Yeah, I mean, I bought it on both consoles. I know it was on Game Pass for a while. That is definitely a great game. If you want to check out an indie game that's phenomenal, it's a Canadian studio that put it together. I believe they're called Hinterland Games. And I played it from when they had it in, I guess, alpha stage. They had it part of early access, but I paid full price for the game. And even if you don't like indie games, it's a great survival game. You're not really surviving anything but like wolves and just extreme cold weather in the Canadian wilderness. So it's definitely worth checking out if you haven't played it already.
Yeah. I think I'm quite looking forward to it. Well, chat, what do you think? Are you looking forward to ID at Xbox? I know Thimber likes his indie games and stuff. But sorry, just a bit of breaking news that came out 26 minutes ago. Apparently, Xbox Game Studios head Xbox Game Studios head Matt Booty says Microsoft hasn't made a decision on a PlayStation release for The Outer Worlds 2.
Yes,
which is interesting because obviously, like the first one came out on PlayStation, so be interested to see how that turns out.
I mean, hey, it's always fun when you get to turn the table in the opposite direction. Like, PlayStation, you want to play those games? We could play that too. What do you think?
I always thought it was kind of understood that The Outer Worlds 2 was not going to PlayStation because they had no agreement in place. That was kind of the understanding, I think.
But it's kind of like how what was the game that Square Enix pulled?
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Not remake, because they did do that, but it's another game that actually ended up coming out. Is in the line of the older style Final Fantasy.
Oh, Octopath Traveler.
Yes, Octopath Traveler.
Okay.
Octopath Traveler 1 was on Game Pass on Xbox, but it's not available. The second one isn't available?
Correct.
I can do the exact same. We can do the exact same thing with the Outer Worlds. Like, is that the type of deals where if you're willing to cut those type of like simple, insane, unsensical type deals, like for what? The first game was, you would literally, you complain about your user base, complain about not making enough money, Square, and then you cut deals with PlayStation. People say, oh, well, they're always going to do what makes sense for them business-wise. So instead of continuously trying to build your audience, you again slap them in the face by not only doing it with Remake, but then doing it again with Octopath Traveler and saying that, hey, whoever played that first game, you're going to get the PlayStation to play it over here. So, I mean,
You know,
I don't know. I like Xbox being aggressive, so I would hope so.
It kind of feels like the people managing Square Enix right now were managing Sega of Japan whenever they fell out of the console market, because you remember there was dissension among Sega of North America and Sega of Japan. Sega of North America knew what the deal was, and they had that's it was like a study, I guess, where they asked different gamers what they thought about Sega. And of course, Sega of Japan is like, nope, we're not listening to any of this criticism. It kind of feels like Square Enix is like that. They let Tomb Raider go. They let Deus Ex go. Eidos Montreal is gone, of course. Crystal Dynamics is gone. They're complaining because they're not making sales. They're keeping their games on one platform rather than two. And they're like, oh, we're not making good sales. And it's like the writing's on the wall. It's like all the stuff they're going through is self-inflicted. They need to wake up. That's what they need to do. It's ridiculous.
Agreed. And I think that Booty's being, purposely ambiguous with this statement here, right? Obviously. It is a court of law. I think he's being when he says a decision hasn't been made, because as we found out, ZeniMax does run themselves, obviously. So they could still make the decision, again, sure, asking, Phil and everybody at Xbox if it's okay, but I maybe that decision hasn't been made. Now, the more interesting part of this is if he is being truthful on the stand, and we're going to assume that Booty is here, then that does open up the idea for Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout as well, which was an early discussion that everybody was having. Is exclusivity when it comes to Bethesda games, ZeniMax games, going to be limited to new IP? Are they honestly, now we know they're still supporting Fallout 76, Elder Scrolls Online, all of that's been clarified. But going forward with new full games, right? Not MMOs, not games as a service, are they going to open up the potential that, hey, Elder Scrolls has been on PlayStation ever since Oblivion, right? Elder Scrolls has been there. Sure, Morrowind was an Xbox exclusive. It was a different time, whatever the case may be, but Elder Scrolls was there. Are we going to give that player base over there, Elder Scrolls 6? Same with Fallout.
No.
And I would tend to lean, obviously, your way, Steele. I would definitely say that no, because that's why they spent, nearly $7 billion on ZeniMax, was for exclusivity deals, and it wasn't just for brand new IP. It was going to be for the stuff that's known, which is Elder Scrolls, Fallout, those types of games.
If in 10 years you still decide that you don't want to invest in the Xbox ecosystem, I don't think it's because you're not you just don't want to invest in that ecosystem. That's the only reason.
And I agree with you. And Elder Scrolls 6 is about 6 years away, right? 5 to 6 years away.
Exactly.
So,
like at that point,
Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately Xbox does make the decision, but Outer Worlds 2, a couple years away, 2-3 years away, could they do it? Sure, they could do it. I still generally lean to the fact that they're going to keep Outer Worlds 2 even as an exclusive when this is all said and done, but I think for the courts today, Booty was being truthful without coming out and saying, yes, it's going to be exclusive. I think they've left that on the table specifically for this reason, knowing that they might wind up in a court of law, and their attorneys probably said, hey, don't put anything in writing. Don't say anything that indicates that Outer Worlds 2 would be exclusive. They're going to ask you about all these games, upcoming games. They're going to try to pinpoint how many exclusives you are making out of this deal to try to prove that you're going to do the same thing with Activision. So as many as we haven't decided, as many as you guys haven't decided, don't make any decisions now. Let's wait until this is done.
They did say before, though, that it would be determined on a case-by-case basis. So even back then, they left themselves an out.
Correct. Absolutely they did.
Sorry, I was just trying to look for fucking topics. We're running out of topics quite quick tonight. I'm scrolling IGN, what can we talk about? Shit.
Oh, we can make up topics. We can roll all day long with topics. You and I know how to do that. Right? Don't worry about that. We can talk about everything.
You guys go for it.
Hey, we could talk about the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection. It's releasing on October 24th. You guys a fan of Metal Gear Solid?
I am.
I never played the first one. I never bothered playing the rest of them. I like the first game.
I like Metal Gear Solid from a story standpoint. I've never played the previous games outside of Phantom Pain. So what is that? Metal Gear 5. So that's my entry point to the entirety of Metal Gear. Those older games, unless they're going to completely remake them, like the rumors are with what is that, 3 or Snake Eater or whatever that's called. If they're completely remaking that in the same vein like they did with Phantom Pain, that same kind of style, then I'll definitely be interested in that because I loved it. But outside of that, I mean,
It's rough.
dope if
It's
people
it's funny that you bring that up because a lot of people's entry was the Phantom Pain. People who played it from the older series understand that combat was I call it a hallway action game because it's kind of like there's so many hallways and close quarters type of stuff that people who are fans of the Phantom Pain are going to play it and go, what the hell is this? Yeah, it's Snake Eater, yeah, it's Metal Gear Solid, but it's just like, it's like you heard the name and you're like, oh, it's going to be great, but then you play it, and compared to how Metal Gear Solid the Phantom Pain was nice, wide open, it's just they'd have to change so much in the game. I don't know if they're going to do that. I would like to see that though, because the earlier games were just so constricting,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Metal Gear from back in the day. Obviously, would I say that I'm a stan by any stretch of imagination? No, but I definitely enjoyed my time with the Metal Gear. I like Kojima's weirdness, so I've always enjoyed his games, and so therefore there is something there for me. So I'm excited to see that we are getting the collection. I wish they would do full-on remakes. I wish Konami was in the same position that Capcom currently is, and they had the money and they had the success behind them. The unfortunate part is that they basically jumped out of the video game industry for a bunch of years, right? They didn't do anything. If they had better management, if they had leveraged their IP like Capcom did and started making a comeback, I'd love to see the originals get a remake, get a full-fledged remake brought up to date, because I think those stories from back then told nowadays would be like a brand spanking new game to so many people who weren't alive back then or who were just babies back then. So I'd love to see that in the future for sure. The fact that they're putting out a collection, the fact that they are doing something with them is exciting to me. It's nice to have all those games in one spot. I've got some on the 360 versions which are backwards compatible, which is always great, but they do need modern controls. Let's be real. The tank controls, the Resident Evil tank controls, the Metal Gear tank control, they just don't work really well nowadays. Like, it's very hard to get used to that again. So I think it's a good move for Konami. I'm happy to see Konami doing something with them. It's too bad that they burned the bridge with Kojima. That was absolutely awful to treat somebody who has done so much for you that way. Again, I know Kojima isn't necessarily the easiest person to work with, according to all stories, but at the end of the day, he did kind of make your brand at that point. Like, you became Kojima was the face. But I think a lot of people are going to be really, really excited. I obviously won't be day one. I'm going to be traveling space, so I'm not planning on picking up any games around that time through the rest of the end of the year. We'll see. But I am glad for everybody that is a Metal Gear fan that they're finally getting a version of this. And I'm kind of unclear. Do you guys know they're releasing, I believe, the original NES games. Those are only coming to Nintendo, right? That's part of the Switch package.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Sure.
Yeah, I just saw that on the Switch showcase, or Nintendo showcase, and I was curious about. I'm pretty sure that's the way it's going to be because Nintendo never lets their games really go anywhere else except for one or two, with the deals with Microsoft. But I would love to see those old NES games come over and be able to play them on Xbox. That would be pretty damn cool. But I don't think that's going to happen. But shout out to all the Metal Gear fans who've been waiting for this. It's going to be a fun run, and they labeled this as Volume 1, which means they have future plans if this is successful, which is always
Peace Walker. Probably going to bring about Peace Walker.
Yep, probably.
I remember playing the first one they brought to PlayStation, the original, the PS1.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember it being brilliant. Couldn't tell you what happened in it, and never played any of the others. But I remember the first one on PS1. I thought it was great, but I couldn't tell you what the fuck it was about. Honestly, I was more amazed with the fact that you get like a little exclamation point above people's heads.
Oh, of course. All that was new to us. All of that was new. It was absolutely amazing. When it first dropped, I still remember going and getting it at the store at midnight launch, and I remember bringing it home, and I was living in a bachelor pad, so me and a bunch of the other guys, we sat around all freaking night long and played Metal Gear Solid. Like, it was absolutely incredible. Such a good time, man. Metal Gear Solid was a classic, and it was definitely at its time pretty groundbreaking for a lot of people. The opening cinematic was like, oh my god, we're like watching a movie, guys, on our PlayStation. Yeah. Like, this is crazy. Like, and now you look at it and you go, oh, well, okay. But back then, it was a big deal. It was something that we didn't get a whole lot of. So it was interesting.
I find it funny because like you think about the games on the PS1 especially, and you really, like think about how good those graphics were.
Yes.
And now you realize, shit, I could play that shit on my phone.
Right.
Now, you know what I mean? It's like technology's come so far in the last 20 years. It's incredible.
It has. Did you guys watch the Todd interview by chance this morning with Kind of Funny?
I did not. No,
you did not. Okay.
I did.
You haven't yet either, Steele? Okay.
No, of course I did.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Interesting interview this morning. Great interview by Kind of Funny Games this morning. Of course, Snowbike Mike and Gary Whitta in Paris over there. They did a fantastic job. They still talk too much when you got somebody on a time limit, but that's okay. That's them. It is what it is. But Todd did clarify some things for Starfield. He did answer some questions that were on people's minds. And so if you guys want me to, I've got a list of different things he talked about today.
Yeah, sounds good.
I don't know how hyped you guys are for Starfield, but in my book, it's the only game coming out for the rest of the year. So I will talk about this all day long. But he talked about, let's get to some of the cool things here. Let's get to both some cool and some bad.
Skip all that.
Some bad.
Vehicles,
There's no land vehicles. He did confirm, everybody, there are no land vehicles, that they made the game entirely based upon your walking and your jetpack. He said your jetpack definitely is a great way to move, but you will not be able to ride any beasts, and there are no type of futuristic motorcycles or vehicles at all. Wow. So that is one. Also, he did confirm that roughly 10% of those 1,000 planets will have life on it, because they took the far end of the spectrum, because scientists can only guess at how much life is out there, and they estimate it's anywhere between 2 and 10%, I think, are the numbers. They went to the far end, 10%, but he basically said, hey, 10% of the planets are going to have some type of life on it. So again, for all the people freaking out about 1,000 worlds, guess what? They got a scanner for you, first of all, so you can scan a planet first and decide if you want to land or not. But now you realistically only got 100 planets to find if you're only looking for life, right? So it's going to be a needle in a haystack, but guess what? That's part of the game. So they want to keep it more realistic, more grounded. I'm cool with that. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. Let's see what else he confirmed. No radios. There will be no radio. He said one location does have a radio channel, but anybody that was looking for the Fallout radio stations while you're traveling around in your spaceship, no radio. So, yeah. I kind of wanted that one too. I thought they should have some kind of space radio.
Best features, I think.
Yeah,
the Pip-Boy radio.
The radio. Yeah.
But you never really feel alone when you got the Pip-Boy radio.
Exactly. There will only be 4 romance opportunities, and those will be the Constellation people. There will be no other NPCs that you run into that you can romance. So for all you lovers out there, and there's plenty of you in the Bethesda world, you're going to have to wait for mods. You're going to have to wait for mods.
They have to confirm this.
Yes, I know. This is what people want to know. Correct.
You'll have a fantasy relationship with an NPC. That's what my gaming experience is about.
Right, exactly. And there are people upset. I've already seen tweets upset about this. Let's see. He did answer Jez Corden of Windows Central's question, which of course Jez asked if there was fishing. Todd and Todd said, well, what do you count as fishing? Like blowing up and collecting the fishes? And Gary Whitta said, Todd, do I have a rod that I can put into a body of water and catch fish? And Todd said, no, there is not that. So, but it does sound like you can shoot and collect fish as well. Let me see here. What else? He confirmed today, which is exciting for me. I don't know about anybody else, but as somebody who does plan on building bases and habitats on these worlds, he said there will be a system where you can have ships transport cargo between your different bases and settlements, and it will actually generate economy for you. So that's going to be a big thing. And he kept reiterating that, listen, shipbuilding and base building is expensive, and you're going to need a lot of resources. So if you're planning on deep diving into that, it's not going to be something you can just casually get into. It's going to be something that you have to spend some time into.
I hope that doesn't translate into you can speed that process up with microtransactions.
No, I doubt so. I doubt they're going to do that. They really haven't done that in the past. I mean, the modding community is going to come up with different things too, but I doubt he's going to do that. The other thing is We'll see. We'll see. Again, I know we're in 2023, so anything's possible, but let's hope not. Let's hope not. He also did confirm that with shipbuilding, if you pirate a ship, it is yours to keep. Obviously, they talked about that. But he said you're allowed to fly that ship anywhere. It becomes part of your fleet. If you want to mod that ship, however, you have to register the ship.
Oh,
And
okay.
I think that's obviously so that they can keep count because they're going to have a max number of ships you're allowed to have. So I think that's probably why he did that. But you will have to register it and then mod. He confirmed yet again that yes, you will be able to do smuggling. They're going to have shielded cargo, some way to shield the cargo, and you're going to have a chance of being found or not found when they scan your ship. He confirmed that as well. He confirmed he was kind of sly about this, but he did say somebody asked if they could have a ship full of robots as crew, and he said technically yes. So he indicated that there's going to be more than just Vasco that you can come across, right? So Vasco's not the only robot. Trying to think if there was anything else really. One really big bad creature in this game, he said.
Right.
So because they were asking him if the Bethesda games are known for their creatures and dragons, obviously in Skyrim and stuff. And they said, "Are you going to have memorable creatures in this?" And he said, we got one really bad one and a few other ones." And they kind of cut them off and they skipped over it as bad interviewers do instead of actually following up with that. But he said one really bad. So I'm assuming we're going to meet some really big monster in this game at some point.
Deathclaw in space.
Yes,
Tell
something.
you what, it'd be really cool if it was a Deathclaw, you know.
Yeah.
You could they could be tied to the same universe, you know. This
There
could
you
be
go.
A lot of people have wanted that, right?
After the nuke.
A lot of people wanted that.
Case.
It would be cool. And knowing these guys, we are going to see something that is memorable and that is like, oh my God, I can't believe I got to fight this thing. For sure. That's kind of a staple sometimes or a staple all the time for Bethesda games. So I'm assuming that's what he's hinting at there. Somebody did ask him.
Really cool. If they
It
were
would be.
two universes together where like people evacuated Earth to avoid the nuke.
There were like
And the
laser
Deathclaw-
guns. There were ray guns. Remember, there were ray guns in Fallout 4 that they said were from aliens.
And the Deathclaws are like a fucking alien that landed on the planet and they're terrorizing the Fallout people. That'd be great, dude. That would be so cool.
It would be really cool. Somebody also asked if there was any black holes, and he declined to answer. So obviously, when somebody declines to answer, I always go with yes.
Probably
but
is,
something like a black hole. So that'll be interesting as well. I think that's most of the interesting stuff off there. There was a bunch of other stuff he covered.
I've lost interest in the game now that I know you can't fish and you can't shag whoever you want.
Really?
That's it?
Yeah, that's it for me.
That's it?
I'm
You're so much like Steel. Steel doesn't want this game anymore either because he can't romance anybody, right, Steel?
No, he didn't say I couldn't become the flyest space pirate you've ever seen. So I'm still on board 100%. That's the first thing I'm doing. He did reiterate though, you won't be able to customize your ship completely up front. It's going to be very cost intensive. That's more of like an end game type of thing that you'll want to end up working towards. So that was an interesting thing. Of course, people like Pong and myself, and there's others who enjoy their time that they spend within those worlds. So as I'm finding my perfect spacesuit, I'll probably have more than enough money to by the time I get even started with the game for real.
Right.
I'll have plenty of money to get together whatever I need to build my perfect Millennium Falcon, or of somewhat, or of that nature. But
my hardest issue with Starfield is because I've played No Man's Sky and I fell in love with No Man's Sky, and now everything I hear about Starfield, I just think, well, I could do that in No Man's Sky. Well, that's what I did in No Man's Sky. That's how my mind's working at the moment. So I'm finding it very difficult to not see it as anything other than a No Man's Skyrim. No Man's Skyrim.
But so that same argument, Redders, that same argument is why BMG refuses to play Forza games. He doesn't like racing games because he thinks they're all the same, and we go round and round with him every week because of that shit.
That's why he only plays fucking Marvel Snap now.
Oh,
and Destiny 2.
There's nothing that can rival
it. Well, Steel recently played No Man's Sky too. He, for the first time, he jumped into it for quite a bit. Actually, he jumped into it.
I got easily over. I got 100 hours in it.
Yeah. And Steel, you've talked about even just watching the video. To you, sure, there's going to be similarities because, of course, how many different ways can you explore space if you're going to keep it semi-realistic, right? Of course, everybody steals from everybody nowadays, right? But if you go back to tabletop games, they had laser cutters for space exploration to take out mining, right? That's like normal. Like, so I understand that concept of why people say it. I still think it's a slight on this game because Bethesda's mechanics and their randomness is not duplicated in No Man's Sky. As somebody who played No Man's Sky day one when it launched, and has played some of the recent updates, I can't say that I played the most recent one, but I have played the updates as they've gone along, and I like No Man's Sky. You don't have the Bethesda mechanics in that game. There is
Nowhere close.
Nowhere's near what
Nowhere
they're
near.
talking about. And for me, when I look at this game, this is the space game that I've always wanted and dreamed of. And it's different because that Bethesda magic is something that only they can do. People have tried. People have come close. People have done it in different ways. But Bethesda still remains king when it comes to this type of sandbox for me. And again, I think that Starfield, as Todd said in this interview and other interviews, they've taken everything they've learned from all their previous games, their generational Game of the Year games, and have rolled it into this one because this was his dream game that he wanted to make for 2 decades plus. So I think that this is going to be even on another level from what he's been talking about, as far as that feeling like, hey, I'm going to go over here and I have the goal in mind that I'm going to complete this mission. And about midway to that point, you wind up on a 15-hour excursion on the opposite end of the universe, wrapped up in some kind of gigantic plot that you had no idea even existed, right, an hour before, right? So to me, that still is Bethesda only, and that's why that's why this game is unbelievable to me. I can't wait.
I think the other thing that also adds to the conversation too, when you bring up No Man's Sky, just as a reference point, and I understand why the reference is there.
Sure.
Again, you could compare a lot of space games to each other, and say that, oh man, they have similarities. So I think I've played something similar to this already. No Man's Sky came out in 2016. It took 7 years for the game to be even what I experienced recently this year, right? From what I've heard from a lot of people who are veterans in the No Man's Sky community, they've said the same thing, that hey, this game's, hey, yeah, I'm excited that you're jumping in now, man. The game's better than it's ever been, and all these updates, but it's taken almost 7 years for it to be where it's at right now. The other difference too is that the approach on the overall game style is just completely different. Yes, you will have done similar things, resource gathering, building bases, and you can say, "Oh man, yeah, that's I've done those things before." But have you done those things and actually cared about the universe that you're in? And I think that's the difference, and I think that's what gets me kind of excited about it, because I'm not the Bethesda fan, and I say this as an addition because the closest thing that I had to Bethesda is Elder Scrolls Online. And I think that game helped me understand the vastness, and that's not even the main team. I mean, it is the main online team, of course, but it's not their main. Bethesda team works on a single player games and makes everything so refined and tedious and lets you touch everything. And there's a reason, many people overlook it. There's a reason why the lady brought up the whole sandwich thing about being able to, just put a bunch of sandwiches in storage. No, there's not many other games that do little stupid, simple stuff like that and allow you to tailor your experience and your experience also affect the entire universe. No Man's Sky does not do that. No Man's Sky is literally I consider it more along the lines of like a Minecraft, right? Yeah, sure, you could play survival. There's even a little bit of some story there, right? And something that you can get in line with. But at the end of the day, it's either get to the center of the universe or get lost in the literally infinite amount of procedurally generated planets. There's no handcrafted nature to them. It's all picked from a template. It doesn't feel, that's part of the reason I kind of slowed down my game time on that game, because as much as I love the space exploration, the flying feels great. Going to the different planets feels great. Going to hyperspace is amazing. Space battles fun. There's not enough gunplay for me. That's a personal thing. There's not enough cosmetics for me. That's a personal thing. But outside of that, I have nothing else making me care about this universe that I'm in or these different solar systems that I go to. Nothing outside of, oh, this is a cute planet. I built a cute house there. I want to build up my resources. But outside of that, where's the cities? Where's what makes this feel alive to me? And I think that's what separates it from games of that ilk, right? And I don't think people are wrong for comparing the two, right? Because they are doing very similar things and resource and some procedurally generated things. But Todd Howard also reiterated again that there is a lot of that handcrafted nature. This isn't, just procedurally generated. We just gave a bunch of stuff to a computer and it's just going to poop out some stuff. No, they like handcrafted what those procedurally generated things are going to be and how they can be tailored to the different planets. And because of the random nature and because none of us, even on this on this podcast, are going to have a similar experience as far as going to different planets are going to be, because that's how they created it. It's at least to be something that will add on to our experience and make everybody's own story unique versus what those other games don't end up doing.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about Starfield is, as great as Forza Horizon 5 was, as great as Halo Infinite has become, none of those games have the PlayStation community as up in arms as Starfield does. It has them going completely nuts right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, you see a lot of people downplaying, they were always downplaying Bethesda and saying, Bethesda, nobody cares about these games. And I'm like, as the casual Bethesda guy sitting on the outside, like, guys, I played Elder Scrolls and some Skyrim, and like I understand what's capable in their games. Like, why are y'all just making it seem like this is a brand new developer? They've never developed games before. They're doing the most ambitious thing that they've ever experienced. They've never made these type of open world games, and it's just going to be bad. Oh, it's space. It's like I don't think that's the case here.
Yeah.
I know they've come out and said that this is going to be the buggiest, the less buggy version Bethesda game that's ever been released. I guarantee you, it'll be the most buggy Bethesda game that's ever been put out, because there is so many fucking new things to be able to put into it. I have a hard time believing that a Bethesda game is going to come out with very few bugs. It just
we're gonna find out, Redders, right? We're gonna find out if all this QA testing has done its job, because they basically, Phil and Matt said that every single QA tester is on Starfield at this point, almost literally, right? So if that's the case, if all this extra time has been spent polishing, which again we knew they were in the polishing phase last year, Todd confirmed that, and this whole time has been about fixing the bugs and making the game shine, which obviously we saw the difference from last year's footage to now the directs footage, right? There was a huge difference. Gunplay was completely different than what we saw in the first one. So if all that falls in line with the bugs, I tend to believe this could be the least buggy Bethesda game. And again, Bethesda bugs, people like to call it Bethesda, and yes, there are people out there, we saw this with Cyberpunk as well. There are people out there who are legitimately bothered by any bugs, and that's fine. If that is something that irritates you, I'm not going to try to tell you that you're lying or anything. That's just you as a gamer. Bugs bother you. But there is a whole couple generations who grew up during the Xbox era, OG Xbox, and Xbox 360 era, playing these Bethesda games when they were the worst performing games almost on the planet. And yet they still turn out to be Game of the Years. And yet they're still some of our favorite games. Me personally, Elder Scrolls series is number one on my list of all-time game series, period, bar none.
Fallout 3 in New Vegas. My God, they're absolutely
right. Right, we're playing at like 10, 12, 15 frames at times, right? Like so there's a whole couple generations who grew up still, loving these games no matter what. Now, there's new generations that don't put up with it as much and that have grown up in the era of social media where everything is blown out of proportion and, oh my God, I saw a screen tear. What are you guys doing? This should be fixed immediately.
Oh my God.
Right, exactly. So there is that generation. But for most Bethesda fans, and again, I'm not excusing it. I've spoken out about the buggy messes that games have been releasing in. I have spoken out about the day one patches that now, with the dawn of the digital age, this is now a crutch for a lot of developers to be able to fix their games, and publishers just say, nope, get it out the door. We saw that again with Cyberpunk. Get it out the door. We don't care. Fix it later. That is a problem. So I'm not going to excuse bugs, but when it comes to Bethesda, many of those bugs have become charming, have become actual memes, have become to the point where like people smile when they happen. Again, that's part of the experience with Bethesda. Now, do I hope this is the least buggy Bethesda game ever? Yes, absolutely. Of course I do. I want everybody to have the best experience with Starfield launches. But I think at the end of the day, you're not wrong to say, like I've been telling people, I don't care how long they delay this game for, because people are out here, oh, just make sure it's bug free. If you ever think a Bethesda game is going to come out bug free, you are crazy. You have never played one before, and you don't understand. And now you're putting it in space with 1,000 planets. Yeah, okay, we're going to have some bugs, but at the end of the day, I think they can overcome it as long as there's no game-breaking bugs or save-deleting bugs. Those are the two things that I still like. The minute I lose progress in a game, I'm like, nope, done. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm not playing your game.
I don't mind seeing aliens walk through the fucking floor.
Right.
As long as you don't.
As long as you don't fuck with my save.
Right.
Well, I kind of feel like that's why they locked it at 30 frames per second, because they said at 30 frames per second, we can make sure that it runs smoothly, and we can make sure that it has minimum bugs at launch. That way, the whole package is as acceptable as we can possibly get it.
Yeah.
Consistency is what they asked, right? Consistency.
Yep.
So
I just want to.
Go ahead.
I just want to touch on something that Thimber posted in the chat.
No, I'm taking over your show. We're not talking about that now.
Oh, no, it's all good. It's all good.
Go ahead.
So Sarah Bond has now gone back to the stand, and she has said that Activision forced Microsoft into a new Call of Duty revenue deal. Sarah Bond is detailing how Microsoft had to agree to a new revenue share deal with Activision to get Call of Duty on the Xbox Series X and S. Activision refused to agree to prepare its Xbox dev kit work and hinted that it had a different revenue share with PlayStation. Activision Bobby Kotick wanted Microsoft to agree to a new revenue share deal before work begun on Call of Duty for Xbox Series S and X. It was clear that Call of Duty would be on PS5, and that would not have been good if it was not also on Xbox if it was launching at the same time. So, I find that's quite interesting. Sorry, I just wanted to draw attention to that because that's quite big news.
No, I think that's important to draw attention to because, I mean, again, I feel like we keep getting information that solidifies the things that we've been thinking about in the background, like quite literally. Literally PlayStation will do anything to make their competitor look like trash. Like there are so. That's what I never have gotten when people have these conversations, make PlayStation seem like the greatest thing ever. And again, I don't have nothing genuinely against PlayStation themselves, but it's just, and Sony themselves, but it's just, you have been doing underhanded dealing since the existence of your company being there. That's just, it's a fact. You can do you can Google search, whatever. That's something you got to do in your own time because you have wanted to be successful as a hardware business. Now that you're in a point where you actually have somebody to compete with, it's all these, you crying for woof about what? About things that you've done. And then when the things that you have done in the past get exposed, now it's like, oh, wow, I didn't even know people did that for real. That's crazy.
Because a part of that Sarah Bond conversation as well on the stand was they also confirmed how deep those marketing rights go and that Xbox was extremely limited into how they could showcase Call of Duty in reference to Xbox, and that they would have to wait for Activision to give them the exact guidelines that they would have to follow because Sony wrote so much into the contracts. This, again, is something that has been talked about. People have denied it. This is why I say this is the most fascinating deal we probably will ever see in gaming, because it really is pulling back the curtain. This is how the dealings work. And to your point, Redders, the other part of this was that Activision themselves didn't need Xbox. And this is what Xbox has been trying to tell all the regulators at the same time. We're in a position with the way that the Xbox was during the Xbox One generation, right? Where they had zero power, right? They had zero power in the gaming industry in a lot of ways because
Literally.
these publishers, like a Call of Duty, like a Grand Theft Auto, I'm sure if Strauss and Phil have a great relationship, right? So I'm sure it was a little bit easier, but at the same time, we're seeing how business actually works and how cutthroat this gets. Activision was literally saying, "No, we got the biggest dog in the house behind us. We don't need your little chihuahua." Right? We don't, why do we need your little chihuahua, right? Why are we going to give you the same revenue split that we gave our big dog to protect our house, right? Why are we going to do that? Your chihuahua's not going to do anything for us. So no, you're going to have to take less, right? That's really what it came down to. And again, everybody's favorite snake, worst, person list all the time, Bobby Kotick, top 10 all time, right? Obviously, him being who he is, running the board of Activision, of course they're going to do that, right? They're going to apply the pressure.
She's throwing him under the bus like that. Like she's,
but it's all facts, right? And Bobby knows it. I mean, they know it, right?
She's quoted as saying, "Kotick made it clear that if we did not move beyond standard revenue share, that he intended to not place Call of Duty."
Correct.
Yeah, but he doesn't give a shit because everybody already knows he's a garbage human being, so he doesn't.
Right.
He's prepping for his exit. That's a big fact.
Right.
That man is not about to keep that position, and if he does, we're gonna have a different conversation definitely to be had at that point.
He ain't sticking around.
But at that point, it's like, I mean, you might as well bring out the facts because he's not going to come out and refute it, bro. What else are you going to say other than things that are going to be in favor of this deal for you to get the biggest golden parachute that you could have ever imagined and get away with all the heathenish things that you've done throughout your entire career,
right,
bro? At this point, like, you probably said those things in the past, and Sarah, you tell them.
Yeah,
go ahead, bring that golden parachute.
Go ahead.
I'm good.
I'm already burnt to a crisp. It don't matter at this point. We just want this deal to go through so all this money comes in, right? And all our shareholders are happy. And like Steele just said, Bobby gets his golden parachute and he's on his way and he doesn't ever have to show his face again anywhere. So again, I think it just goes back to the extreme power position that Sony has been playing within this market, which we've all talked about, but people are like, nah, no, Xbox makes the same kind of deals. No, they don't. They can't. They don't have that popularity contest won. They don't have the 100 million plus consoles behind them. They don't have that position to be able to walk into publishers and be like, you need us more than we need you. That's not how it works. Sony, on the other hand, can do that, and that's what they've been doing with Square Enix this whole time. And now Square finds them in a world of hurt, just hoping that their pimp is going to put a ring on that finger. But at the end of the day, the pimp is like, we still getting it. We're still getting it free. We don't need to buy it, right? We don't need to do that. That's exactly what's happening here. That's the kind of power. That's the kind of bully tactics. And again, it's business. Business is cutthroat.
Their way.
At the end of the day, especially when it comes to big money, especially when it comes to an industry like this that is growing dynamically still, they are going to be cutthroat. But to see it laid out now and to justify all of our positions and our opinions is fantastic because we've been spot on about this stuff. Sony was the big bully in the neighborhood. They were going around to all these different publishers and wielding that power without any kind of thought to Xbox. They could care less. As we started this conversation, Sony, if they could have killed off Xbox, they would have done it. They probably thought they had achieved it last generation until Game Pass, until Phil convinced Satya, until that whole narrative changed. And then I still believe leading into this generation, they thought they had a chance to kill off Xbox because they never believed in Game Pass to be sustainable. Whereas Xbox has now shown it is sustainable. Now they're investing $70 billion in one acquisition. And now Sony realizes, oh, we're not so big anymore on the block, right? And so I think that this was a perfect way to show this. And I think that, to Steele's point, Bobby don't care. Come out and say whatever dirt you got to lay out on the table. All is about is money for me, and you guys have offered us $70 billion, so go ahead, roast me. That's fine. I did that, right? So I think this is another perfect example on the stand to the judge to show how Sony's been doing this nonsense for a long, long time and could care less about competition at the end of the day. They would be the sole owner of all the industry if they had their way, right? If they had their way, they'd kill off Nintendo too, period.
Yeah. for real.
They did it. But to Steele's point, they did it in electronics back in the day. If you didn't own a Walkman, you owned nothing. If you didn't walk into the classroom with a Walkman and you had some JVC or something like that, even if it was a nice piece of machinery, people looked at you funny. It's the same thing with Apple, right?
It hasn't
It's
changed.
the same.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed at all. Apple wound up killing off everybody except that, Google came along, right, with Android and was like, nah, we're going to license this out to everybody. And Samsung showed up the door and said, yeah, we'll take that bet. Let's go. And slowly but surely built themselves up. Where now worldwide, I think actually
They're in
Android
tandem
is
with each other.
they're close. I think Android leads a little bit worldwide. But Apple used to have that same kind of power. They still do in a lot of ways. If you,
Oh, yeah.
there's still a whole group of people that if you don't own Apple, if you don't own Macs, you
it's
don't
a-
have shit.
It's not even a whole group of people.
Yeah.
There's a mass.
Yeah.
There is a mass of people who will come out in vocal community. You want to get into some arguments with some folks. Have some arguments about why your iPhone is better than the any Android phone for whatever
Right.
reason. Like it doesn't matter what Android you have. If you have an Android period, you're of less quality. It's just
Right.
weird. People are going to find their niche and they'll stick within that.
And we talk all the time on Twitter and in our own gaming communities about Xbox versus PlayStation.
Mhm.
But like as a parent of teenagers, I'm going out there, I'm meeting other parents who also have teenagers. 23 out of 25 are like, hey, my kids game on PlayStation.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
no bullshit. That's how it is.
most easily
Like two of
recognized.
them game on Xbox, but it's because the parents gamed on Xbox first. All
Right.
those parents that don't know anything about gaming, they go to the store and they automatically pick up a PS5 for their kids
Fortnite.
because that is the
There you go.
gaming brand that they
Call of Duty.
recognize.
Yep. That's what they're playing. I mean, that's 100%. I mean, the common consumer, again, and I love to make this point. I continue to say it. There's at one point, and I don't know if it's still true today because I haven't done the research on it. Sony was recognized as the number 7 global brand. Again, global brand, a number 7 of most recognized. And that's understandable how that could be so because of the work that they have put in. And again, I don't think that Sony's wrong for having the power or the position that they have. Nobody was able to compete with them. But then it's like now that we're getting some of the information that we're getting now, and it's like you start understanding maybe why some people weren't able to compete. Because again, nothing against Asia culture and how they do business over there. I mean, like, guys, we've seen some movies, and I'm not going to draw everything in parallel to movies, and I've seen business dealings in real life. Like, there is a huge cultural difference in how they look at business in totality, and they don't mind being cutthroat while looking nice at the same time. You know what I mean? And that's the position that they've been in this whole time. Quality begets, the consumer base that you've gotten, but it also breeds... you become very passive. You get used to people just investing in your ecosystem, and you don't work on things in the back end. People will continue, as long as Sony is popular, as PlayStation is popular, people will continue to defend that, and it will continue to be this conversation, and it will always be one-sided versus the other because of that fact. It's just it's like the whole Jordan shoe conversation. No matter, there's so many people you could talk to who would be like, if you ask them, yo, would you want a pair of Jordan or a pair of these Adidas? Most people be like, oh yeah, let me get a pair of those Jordans. Resale factor, even if they don't wear them, it's resale factor that becomes. There's so many other things that layer on top of it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. But yeah, I'll tell you what, we've actually run out of topics, and we're coming to that point now where we normally wind down and stuff. So, Pong and Steel Rain, honestly, guys, it's been so cool to have you here. If you want to just take the next few minutes to let people know where they can find you on Twitter and stuff, and your own show, then you guys take it away.
You want to lead them? You want to lead them, Pong? Or you want me to lead them?
Go. This is like Saturday, brother. Go ahead, man.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, again, I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Chat, y'all have been chatting it up with us and being consistent. That's always dope to see. I have conversation in there. Some people driving up some smoke and whatnot, but I never minded. I'm always welcome to it. But gentlemen, Redders and Sentinel Man, you guys are dope people. Love being able to come on here with you guys. You had so much good conversation. And again, I'm always grateful to anybody that asks me to be on a show because, again, I wouldn't know you guys if it wasn't for this community, and anybody reaching out, that's a brave thing to do. And just to be able to podcast is a brave thing to do. People make it seem like it's easy. It's not. You know what I mean? It's hard to have a conversation. You guys made it easy today. And I love that. I definitely enjoyed it. But nonetheless, enough of that sappy stuff. You can find me Steel Rain I. That T is a 7 everywhere. The easiest place is Google. Type it in. You'll find all my info there. I frequent the streets of Twitter and the Xbox ecosystem currently because it just works so well in tandem with each other. Game bar pops up. I'm getting notifications here and there, everywhere. It makes it super easy. Other than that, every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, and 3 p.m. UK time, we host a non-console centric platform known as Living Split Screen. Again, we take that RTS approach. That just means we pull ourselves out of the world, look at the darker crevices in the map. We pull those resources together so we can build up that foundation, not only for those 3 billion gamers that we're trying to reach to, but also for our own community and for the sense of conversation. Nonetheless, thank you guys for having us. Greatly appreciate you guys. Chat, much love to you guys, and we'll catch up next time.
Yeah, no worries. Honestly, it's been a massive pleasure to have you guys on.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to be here, guys. It was awesome getting to again chat with you. Love hearing other people's thoughts and just getting around in the community and talking to new people all the time. Again, we see each other, we cross paths on Twitter, but it's not the same, man. Sitting down and having sitting down and having a conversation about this industry that we all love, and it's great. And again, the chat was amazing. I see you in there. I'm Muppet, and I see you in there, Pixel, and everybody else that's in there. Great to see you all showing up and hanging out in the chat and giving us conversation as well in there. That's what it is all about at the end of the day. Just having a good time, sharing opinions, sharing speculation, and talking about, man, this incredible industry, which, you know, again, right now is, as I always say, in the golden age, and we've got more to play than ever before with games. But listen, all you Pongsoul on Xbox, Pongsoul on Twitter, you know the drill there. Tonight, it will be PM in the PM on Fun Speculations channel with Mav, of course, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock Central Time, and we have a great time there. We have a great chat going there as well. So join us there. And then, of course, tomorrow is Xbox Ultimate, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central Time, every Friday night. Bigger panel. We go left, we go up, we go down, we go sideways. We have a lot of laughs. Never know what's going to be said on that show. But at the end of the day, we still talk a lot of gaming news and have a great time. So join us there over on Fun Speculations channel. And then, like my brother said, Steel and I go live for your Saturday morning on Living Split Screen, live, raw, and uncut, bringing that energy that you need to get your weekend started. And that happens every Saturday. Again, Living Split Screen, all one word, 3+ hours. Buckle up. We usually go 4+. We like to talk, folks, if you can't tell. So join us there. And then otherwise, I end my podcasting week on Saturday nights on the Shop Podcast with PTK Blam, Fuzzy Belvedere, and myself. And this week, we're going to have Fun Speculation, and we're going to have this man right here, Living Split Screen's own I Steel Rain. So my brother from another is going to be there. It's going to be a blast. We're going to have a lot of fun. And that happens at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 o'clock Central Time, the Shop Podcast. Listen all, Golden Age Gaming is here. Get out there, enjoy it, play what you love what you play, and I'm going to talk to you all real soon. Redders, Sergeant, it's been an absolute pleasure. Again, honor to be here. Thank you for the invites.
The pleasure's all ours, man. Honestly, it's great to have you guys on. So thanks for coming and hanging out with us. But yeah, we'll be back same time next Thursday, 8 p.m. British Standard Time. I believe there is a Destiny podcast on Sunday night, assuming that BMG isn't still slacking. And I believe the PSN Party Podcast is back again on Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Is that right, Sentinel?
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, you've still got another week full of content. I'm sure Ash is going to be putting reviews up and all that fun stuff you can expect from the channel. So yeah, without further ado, good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Much love to all of you, and I will catch you next week for the next one. Good night.
Later, guys.